Supermarket giants could face massive fines if they rip off suppliers. A new review recommends making the code of conduct mandatory, but stops short of backing divestiture powers. Live to Trudy McIntosh now. Trudy, what's been the reaction?
Well, Kenny, the Prime Minister calling this a very strong review, backing in the major findings. No real surprise there, given this has been authored by the former Labor Minister Craig Emerson. He's called for the supermarkets to now go from a voluntary code of conduct to a mandatory code of conduct, putting teeth into that code that's there, trying to stop the supermarket giants ripping off their farmers and suppliers. He's suggested that the ACCC have the power to issue these massive fines of up to 10% of the turnover of the business. For Woolworths, that would be a fine of $5.2 billion. Coles, $3.8 billion. Aldi, $1.3, and you can see there Metcash, which owns IGA, shy of $1 billion. The most contentious part of this review, though, is this issue of divestiture powers. That is, forcing a supermarket giant to have to sell off part of its assets. Now, Craig Emerson says that's not the best way to go about it. It would have a perverse incentive, effectively, potentially of making market concentration worse. He says if they can't find a buyer, that they would potentially shut their doors, leading to job losses and also making things harder for customers. With all of that together, this is what Craig Emerson says. He says on this idea that it would be a big stick and just a big threat, he says, well, the threat of forced divestiture would need to be credible, and that the problems that have just been outlined ensure that that credibility really isn't there. That's the view too of the government. The Prime Minister previously called this a Soviet-style power, not in favour of it. The review's not backed it, and the Treasurer backing in the review.
Very clear to us that there are much higher priorities when it comes to competition policy. That's not something that we have been exploring because we have found better, more effective ways to deal with some of the issues in our competition policy landscape.
Labor might not be exploring it, but the Greens and the Nationals certainly are. The Greens want divestiture powers right across a whole heap of industries. The Nationals keeping their focus on the supermarkets. But more broadly within the coalition, not all Liberals, in fact, seem comfortable with that policy. Have a look at some of the division and confusion we've seen this morning within the opposition. Jim Chalmers helpfully calling them all over the shop today.
I think it's also a little concerning for Craig Emerson to rule out things like divestiture powers.
It's a good start, but we also think a targeted divestment power is also necessary.
Well, there is always concern with divestiture powers, whether they will actually decrease prices.
This is just the interim report, the full findings by the middle of the year. That's when the government's going to move to pass this through the Senate. They're going to need to do that when it comes to the mandatory code of conduct. But as you see there, it's going to be a difficult Senate fight, Kenny, to try and get the numbers to get this through.
OK, Trudy McIntosh, thank you.